right. Buenos días, mi gente. Buenos días. Hola. Good morning. You are a gift. And we are glad that you're here, and we want you to know that love is the spirit of all souls. In this moment of our shared journey, may you feel witnessed and honored wherever you are on your journey, and remember that whether you are here for the first time or the thousands, whomever you are, whomever you love, whatever your ability, gender, beliefs, political affiliation, or documentation status, you are welcome here, and you're never alone. Let us now rise in body or spirit to greet our neighbors, especially our new or returning folks, and we'll come back to the sound of music.
Okay, okay, I'll speak a little louder. Isn't it more pleasant in here today? I was actually watching on YouTube last Sunday, and I got chilly. Luckily, I was wearing my flannel bathrobe, but I was still chilled just hearing about it. Welcome to everyone that's here, and to those who are catching us later, maybe online. I'm Crystal Francis. My pronouns are she, her. I'm today's worship associate, and together with Nancy Olson, acting director of faith formation, pronouns she, her, and Reverend Katie Romano Griffin, our senior minister, pronouns she, ella. We are your worship team on the chancel today. If you're visiting with us this morning, we are glad to have you here. People of all ages, and nursery care is available if needed. I invite everyone to complete a connection card. Would somebody hold one up? There you go. There you go. Even if you're a regular member, it's nice to have that feedback, good or bad. Please be kind. But it's how we all stay connected, and it's how our caring team knows how to reach you and to support you. And you can reach that team by writing a note on your connection card or by calling 317-210-0121 and leaving a message. Or you can simply email to pastoralcare@allsoulsindy.org. Our Souls Matters theme this month is Welcome. Check in the know to get the packet so you can engage with the materials at home, at All Souls in person, or just online. I'm missing Nadia. Is Nadia here? Okay.
Nobody puts Nadia in
But Nadia.
Good morning. We are doing a banned books service on October 1st. Nadia and Emily are our two worship associates for that service, so heads up, a good time is coming. Good morning again. I want to say thank you to Dr. Indra Frank, Allison Cole, and the entire environmental task force, because we had about 25 people here yesterday, and we streamed Representative Sue Arrington and Dr. Indra Frank talking about the climate crisis. It was a fantastic event. The food was amazing, and we are all blessed today because not everything was eaten, so there's a ton of deliciousness on top of the regular deliciousness that was planned this Sunday. So it's like a smorgasbord out there. So after service, through these double doors and disfruta, enjoy. I also want to thank the group of All Souls folks who went to the Faith in Indiana training yesterday. 5 All Souls members attended, plus me. That was 6 of us. That's a pretty good turnout for one congregation. So great work, everyone. And I have an update for you in our case against the state of Indiana with the ACLU. I was supposed to be in court all week next week, and I'm going to read. This is from Ken Falk at the ACLU. The oral argument that was set for next week has been postponed until December 6th at 10 a.m. in the Supreme Court. The reason that the argument was postponed is that in June, the trial court certified our case as a class action. Yes. This means the case is now brought not just on behalf of the individuals who brought the case, but also on behalf of all persons in Indiana whose religious beliefs direct them to obtain abortions. This is anyone who will need to obtain an abortion, or who are not or will not be able to obtain an abortion because of this act. This is a big deal. So, it was postponed, but for a good reason. I found out kind of late last week. We'll see. Fingers crossed. As we begin our time together, we acknowledge the land itself and those who've sustained it throughout the generations, because we are upon the unceded land of the Miamia, Kaskaskia, Shawnee, and Kickapoo people who were pushed from their land and whose children have been stolen for generations. As we strive to be a community of justice, may we continue to find ways to make reparations. As we continue to center ourselves, I offer you this prayer from Persian Sufi poet and saint Rabindranath Tagore. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by the narrow domestic walls, where words come out of the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms toward excellence, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by you, into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom. Let us all awake. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing together hymn number 1004, Busca el Amor.
Que hace otro bien, busca el amor en ti, se multiplica si lo repartís, busca el amor en ti, solo el que ama puede ser feliz. Busca el amor en ti, se multiplica si lo repartís. Busca el amor en ti, solo el que ama pueda ser feliz. Busca el amor en ti, en ti. Registra tu camaleón cuando cambia el color del corazón y te estalla la flor de pétalo del sol del amor. Lo que hace el otro bien, seek out the love in you and find the joy that comes to those who care. Seek out the love in you. It only grows whenever it is shared. Seek out the love in you and find the joy that comes to those who care. Seek out the love in you. It only grows whenever it is shared. Seek out the love in you, in you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, between the two of us. Oh,
Reminds us to continually renew our promise to live into our covenant, to put into action, and to live out
like
the
the
community of love and justice we aim to be. Now, if you're wondering what this chalice is all about, you'll notice that unlike a cup that you might find that has completely closed sides, our chalices tend to be more open. And do you know why that is? This is my story anyway, so that all of us can warm ourselves by the flame of truth as we understand it. If you're online, I hope you'll let us know in the chat where you're lighting the chalice from. And for those of us here, I invite you to please rise in body or spirit as we say these adapted chalice lighting words of James Villa Blake, the same words we've spoken since 1903. We will read them first in Spanish and then in English. Amor es el espíritu de iglesia y el servicio es su ley. Vivir juntos en la paz, buscar la verdad en el amor y ayudarnos este nuestro pacto. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant. Thank you. You may be seated.
What hellfire is licking at my Unitarian heels? I feel besieged and angered by a lot of political actions and their consequences that smack of long-held hatreds fueled by fear and greed. There are days when being a UU feels like a lonely place to be, except maybe when I'm here with you, feeling encouraged by you, and in one of All Souls small groups where I can talk freely about my fears. My list of horribles, another name for hellfire, gets longer the more I think about it. A lot of bad, angry words are ready to explode from me as I stew about the state of the world. The discard for human lives, our lives, the injustice that is embedded in our society's thinking of who is better, more deserving, taking away a woman's right to control her own body and her right to privacy with her own doctor not only scares me, it makes me really angry. You know, I have a stoic look about me, so sometimes people don't know when I'm, I was going to say a bad word, not happy. I have a favorite one that my husband cringes every time I say. But you know, I thought this problem with regard to abortion had been solved 50 years ago when I was a very young woman, and that my only concept was really that it was preventing a surprise pregnancy. It was the only problem I could see at that viewpoint before experience let me see the problem more fully. Banning books? Who does that? And making librarians and teachers criminally liable for having certain books in the school library? Why does anybody except the Indiana legislature think that this is a good idea? I hope none of you, but I'm sorry if I'm offending, but this is what makes me angry. And it's not only banning books, but banning books about race and about LGBTQ issues. These are issues begging to be in the forefront of learning and discussion. Where do children go when they have questions about their identity or why they are being treated differently? Why is stifling the free flow of information the solution to anything? Who is truly being protected? Entrenched politicians who've lost touch with the general population but answer to extremist religious groups sometimes who provide their funding and who hypocritically couch their agendas in the name of goodness and the American way. I want term limits very badly. Even more, I want political representatives with integrity. Is that so much? The persistent resistance to stop the human activity which is poisoning the air and the needed curative actions ought to be taken. Isn't the reality of the weather extremes we've been experiencing proof enough that change is needed? I receive these thoughtful, considerate alerts from the city of Indianapolis telling me the days when it's dangerous for someone like me to go outside or even to have my windows open at home. It is life and death as far as I can see. What is hellfire nipping at your heels? I bet you won't have to think too hard to make your own angry list. I need to leave before I get really not nice word.
Of you missed it, but it was a beautiful story about Dolores and her work in the world, primarily with migrant workers and with women and children. And it was a beautiful story, and I sat right down here and told the children. At the end, I just sent out a question of how might the life of Dolores Huerta, how might that inspire you to, live your life, take a stand for things that are important to you, and live your life as a teacher or a warrior or a detective or all those things that Dolores was. And so I've been thinking about it this week, and I've thought about it, and what I've come to is I just want to tell you a couple things that have come to me. First of all, I remember when there were the great boycotts. I was young, of course, quite young, but I do remember, and then we also boycotted lettuce, and then there was Gallo wine, because we were supporting this work of the migrant workers. But it was Cesar Chavez, whose name I knew. That's who I heard about all the time, was Cesar. I did not know about Dolores until she got involved in feminist issues and things. So, and that was a number of decades later, and she worked right alongside with this man. They worked well together. So last week we had a lovely picture of Dolores on the back of your celebration, and we have one again this week. And also I want you all to see her name. Dolores Huerta. Dolores Huerta. Dolores Huerta. I want you to see her name because some of us didn't know it. Anyway, in my wonderings about Dolores, I did a little more research and, looking into her life, and I learned quite a bit, actually. And one of the things that started happening is I started wondering, what was it that motivated this woman to just accomplish so many things, to be out there, put her life in danger, to fight for so many rights for women and migrant workers and children? What was it? What got her up every morning? And so I have 3 takeaways. And these are my takeaways. First, her mother, Alicia, was in her own right a community organizer. Her mother was a single mother of 3 children, and she worked hard, and she bought a restaurant and a hotel, and she used that hotel and restaurant for people who may not have the same privileges, for people who needed a home and food. And she served the community. So Dolores grew up in this element of service, to be of service. That is the reason to be. So now on. Secondly, she too, being a person of color, was discriminated against. And one story in particular that floats around is when there was a teacher who said she didn't write those papers because didn't think she was smart enough to write them. Well, that's not right. So she had that discrimination. But the third thing I came to, and I'm so glad we sang that song this morning, which I did not know we were singing, is I think Dolores Huerta had so much love in her heart. She was full of love. She loved those little children that she was first teaching. She loved those families that she got to know. She loved those people. She loved those bosses. She just wanted to knock their heads together and get them to do what was right. So Dolores was love, and out of that love came this belief in what's possible. Sí se puede. Yes, we can. Sí se puede. Sí se puede. And the question to you today is, what's in your heart? And what do you wake up with? Why do you wake up every morning? How are you sharing that with the world? Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing together Building Bridges, hymn number 1023.
Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me?
With
All of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
We are singing about building bridges, about finishing divisions and understanding one another. So I have a challenge for you. Please move from your place and go sing with somebody else. Maybe somebody that you don't know, maybe somebody that you know, but move a little bit and build a bridge to somewhere else, to somebody else. Yeah, but take my Liz? 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 Hey. Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you and you reach out to me. With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. Reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Beautiful. Too little energy for me. We can have a little more energy, right? So we are gonna sing again a little faster, and now we have a division. One side and another side. And we are gonna sing in canon separately, and we will sing together and build our bridges. So while we sing, you feel free to go back to your place while singing in canon, which will be tricky. So, so I need Charlie. Can you come here? So I'm gonna sing one part of the canon. Charlie's gonna sing the other part of the canon. So this side's gonna sing with me. This side's gonna sing with Charlie. And then you move back to your place while still singing with the person that you start singing first. Okay? Ready, go. Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges
reach out to you? Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our divisions.
Reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions,
I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions,
I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions,
Friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Take a moment, take a deep breath. I know I need it. Join me in taking a few moments to note that which is currently bringing joy or sorrow to our community. The Rybergs suffered the death of their aunt, Virginia Ryberg, who recently died at age 102. Rob is also celebrating a birthday this past week. In Morocco, at last count I looked, 2,000 people were dead from a 6.8 earthquake. Jane Gosling is traveling there, but we've had the good news that she is safe and will be home with us soon. Jane Alexander is having surgery tomorrow. Let's wish her well. Whatever is on your heart, please feel free to take this moment to speak it out loud or just hold it while we're all together. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing hymn 1047, Nada te turbe.
nada te turbe, nada te espante, quien a Dios tiene, nada le falta, nada te turbe, nada te espante, solo Dios basta. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. Those that seek God shall never go wanting. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. God alone fills us.
Nada te turbe, sí se puede. Yes, we can. And thank you for coming today. If you saw the title involved hellfire, I'm especially impressed to see so many people here because, you know, we might have some feelings about hellfire. Right? You know, I don't know if you know this about me, but I was baptized Catholic, which is a pretty good stereotypical assumption, right? But it's true in this case. I was baptized Catholic, and we were all in with the Catholic Church, as was right and good with both sides of my family, until, and I quote, this is my mother, I'm quoting, that priest started talking about hellfire. And then we went across the street to the Episcopal Church. yes. That's how strong my mother's feelings were about hellfire. And she said, if one of those priests started talking about hellfire, we were off to temple. She was not playing around. So when you hear hellfire, what do you think about? Hell, right? Fire. Yeah, like sort of burning eternally. Like that one's used a lot. Like that sort of eternal burning. And our theology is not that, right? Our universalist theology says everyone is saved. There legitimately is no hell for universalists. We just don't do that. And in the 1800s, there was a movement called the Restorationist movement. So you could be a Restoration Universalist or you could be an Ultra Universalist. And the Ultra Universalists were just like, hey, you're good. People make mistakes. Our God is a loving God, and everybody automatically saved. And then the Restorationists were like, yeah, but there's some folks who do some really bad things, and there's a place called purgatory for them. Until they figure it out. And then they can get into the promised land. Then they're saved, right? So theologically, that is a perspective, but there's other descriptions of hellfire that I happen to love from comic books. And that's the kind of hellfire I want to talk about today, because this kind of hellfire incinerates things. So there's absolutely nothing left. When someone throws a hellfire bomb, it just continues to burn and take out everything in its path. And there are types of hellfire that we see in our everyday life. Crystal talked about a few of those today. And there's also something called dynamite, spiritual dynamite, political dynamite. And I like to think about it this way. So we know dynamite is pretty scary. It blows things up, it can take down mountains. But there's other types of dynamite that try to blow up systems. And as an activist, there's some systems I would love to blow up, but I want to blow them up on a fractal level. I don't want people to get hurt. I just want the fractal to split apart. Now, fractals are patterns that scientists have identified that continue to repeat. But if you try to get at the center of a fractal, you're really not going to get anywhere. But I dream of working on that molecular level. And if anyone remembers the OG Charmed with Holly Marie Combs and Shannon Doherty, well, it was a story about 3 sisters who had magical powers, and one of them could blow things up at a molecular level, which would be terrifying for New York drivers. But when I think about being able to reach fractals that create patterns like the heart, could you imagine getting to the heart of white supremacy culture and being able to go, because that's all she had to do. That could be really powerful. And I'm going to talk about some ways that there's been activists doing political dynamite to try to blow up systems. But there's another way that we can work on systems, and that's with holy water. Now, Dolores Huerta was an organizer. She had a lot of universalist love in her heart. I'm not claiming her as a universalist, but she had that kind of love in her heart. She was able to build relationships to melt the edges of those frozen fractals and create connections that built new patterns, more loving patterns. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, we also don't have the kind of holy water that like banishes vampires. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. But what we do have is community water, and we're going to create our community water next week. But that water is holy because it has a bit of each of us in it. It is the promise of what we human beings can create together with our intentions. So, holy water. Now let's talk a little bit about hellfire. On September 15th in 1963, 4 members of the Ku Klux Klan planted dynamite inside of the 16th Street Baptist Church. So we're coming up on the 60th anniversary of this act of terrorism. 4 girls who were attending that Sunday school were killed. Addie Mae Collins, Denise McNair, Carol Robertson, and Cynthia Wesley. Should say their names and never forget. This act is hellfire because it was meant to take out the heart of the Black community and incite fear, to burn everything, to do something so horrific that it would continue to burn throughout time and throughout the entire Black community. That is hellfire. The Tulsa massacre, where what was known as Black Wall Street was burned to the ground, that is hellfire. On August 12th in 2017, when neo-Nazis converged on Charlottesville, when police allowed armed neo-Nazi militia to point weapons at peaceful people protesting, that was authoritarian hellfire. Heather Hyde lost her life that day, and many were injured when a neo-Nazi driving a car went into the crowd of peaceful protesters. Authoritarian hellfire. There was holy water that day too. And there's holy water in each of these time periods. But as I will tell you, as a chaplain who debriefed people who were at Charlottesville, I will not betray their stories, but I will tell you what I can, which is the holy water that day was the Care Bears, the people who were specifically assigned to check in with their groups and make sure people were okay, the medics, street medics. So these, in many cases, were not trained EMTs. Some were, thankfully. Some were not. They just did street medic training, and they were able to patch people up, get them to safety so that they could be transported to hospitals. And there was a line of religious leaders that put their bodies between armed neo-Nazis and protesters. Holy water. When we think of the climate crisis, as Crystal mentioned, we think of the Canadian fires, the fires in Maui. And the hellfire here is perhaps not the flames themselves, but it begins with that initial hellfire bomb that was thrown. The heart of the fractal of white supremacy culture that allows people to believe that we somehow have dominion over this earth and not stewardship. That bad piece of theology allows great horrors to be perpetrated against our planet and so many people when combined with colonialism and white supremacy culture. As Billy Joel says, we didn't start the fire, but it's always burning since the world has been turning. But there is dynamite in the climate crisis movement. Some of you may have noticed publicly that there are some climate activists who have been shutting down roads in DC. There have been art pieces that have been painted over. I'm going to nod to Bruce Russell Jane for some actions recently in DC as well, creating public disruption in key spaces to draw attention to the fires that are burning. Thank you for being spiritual dynamite, all the protesters that are out there. There's another kind of spiritual dynamite in the environmental world that relates to Unitarian Universalism. our young adults at our General Assembly, so our national gathering for Unitarian Universalists, put forth a proposal this past summer to demand that we immediately, as an organization, divest from fossil fuels, like immediately. Yes. And the tricky thing is, because of the way our finances are set, if we did that, it would have broken the UUA. And it was painful because we don't want to be too much of an institutionalist that we don't allow change to happen, because what good are we if we can't make the changes that need to be changed because the world is on fire, that hellfire is burning. But if we don't have enough of a continuation of the institution, we can't continue to do some important work. Eek! Holy water was when the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, our new UUA president, spoke and said to our young adults specifically that they are right. We do need to do something drastic, but we needed to change the language of the proposal a little bit so there's enough institutionalism that we can make it and so that we can do the work that needs to be done. So there's some studies going on right now so that we can get there, so that we can be in alignment, but not the kind of study where we study it for 5 years and then we think about it some more and then we take some action. Our youth and young adults are correct, and this is their planet. They wanted Montana for a reason. We have to make changes now, and drastic changes. So we will move quickly on that. But that was Sophia's response. Reverend Sophia's response was very much holy water. Hosting the Eastside Care Network here yesterday, providing education, helping to change hearts and minds, is an example of a way that we participate in holy water and sharing holy water. Another example for you about something that happened at a General Assembly a few years back. There's a religious rights group that loves to protest our General Assemblies. They don't like us at all. And in this particular instance, we were ready to do a counter-protest. So they came to protest, we were going to do a counter-protest, and there were folks, it was a small group, but it was an intergenerational group, and the things that people were saying to us were horrible. I mean, even from the mouths of babes, like terrifying, horrible things. Hellfire. Literally hellfire, like theological hellfire and emotional hellfire. But our youth, our UU youth, did something that was the ultimate in holy water. It was a hot day. We had water, and they crossed the line to pass out water to the protesters. That's holy water. And that's not easy to do. Yesterday at the Faith in Indiana training, those in attendance learned how important it is for us to try to find a way to not other people who disagree with us, even when their views can harm us. Because when we continue on that path, the split and the chasm gets wider and wider, and we are not able to organize and build power in a way that will make a difference, that will actually help us to have enough holy water in the bowl that it can be present at all the places where we need it present. We need each other. Si se puede. The near abortion ban, proposed cuts to WIC, the salaries that our childcare workers are paid and the continued attack on childcare workers and home childcares. This is a type of hellfire that is specifically directed at controlling people's ability to reproduce. And that's people with uteruses, because if we really wanted to control people's ability to reproduce, we would look at those who are more fertile and can create more children potentially than a single womb is capable of. So it's not about families. That is hellfire. Together, this congregation unanimously voted for spiritual dynamite almost a year ago today, when this congregation said, we want our minister to be a part of the ACLU's case against the state of Indiana. We know that means she might need to skip some things for us, because that's where we want our minister to stand up for our religious rights and the rights of all those who have uteruses. That, friends, is dynamite. Nara te turbe. We are persistent and will not be deterred. And there's holy water too, because you have made it possible for me to offer pastoral care and support to people who are making hard choices in many of these areas that we've talked about. And you are out there doing that work too, making the sandwiches, giving the hugs, having hard conversations. You are holy water too. And as we face what truly is the fight of our lives and the fight of our children's lives, these are not gentle and easy times. We must decide in each moment whether we can be dynamite or whether we need to be holy water. But in these decisions, we must always remember that we are not alone. Sí, se puede. Sí, se puede. Juntos, together, yes, we can. Go forth. Go forth. I know it's not closing words. Don't pack up. Just the end of my sermon. When you go forth today, go forth holding on to those words. Must I be dynamite or must I be holy water? And where is the hellfire in your life? And if you need support beating back that hellfire, I am well versed in not just spiritual texts, but often comic books, and can help you along the journey. Amen, and blessed be.
I don't know about you, but I was a little scared where that was going to go. Each week, we gather together to align our giving with our values. Isn't that a wonderful thing? We give support to the missions and ministries of our congregation and share half of our weekly offering with an organization whose values align with ours. This week, we are donating to UUs for Social Justice. UUs for Social Justice advocates on a national level regarding some of our hot-button hellfire issues. This organization intends to have an unrelenting presence in Washington, D.C. to speak on behalf of UU congregations. You ought to check out its website at uusj.org for current information about national social justice issues and how you can help and participate. To contribute, you can give cash or a check into the collection plate, or if you're online, you can go to allsoulsindy.org, where you will find a link that says Give to All Souls here on the left side. It's beneath the description for today's service. Please state if your gift is a pledge payment or if it's for Share the Plate, if you're contributing online or using a check. Thank you for your generosity in helping support the mission of All Souls and for your continued love for one another and for this world. Take this moment to make your gift. The morning offering may now be given and gratefully received. Thank you.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you. I was like, you know you wanted to do this in your seat because it was that good. Oh, beloveds, go forth from this day as care bears, activists, religious leaders, singers, organizers, and dispensers of holy water, or whatever else your heart calls you to be. Go forward to create love and justice in gentle and firm ways, because it's needed, and so are you. May it be so. Amen. And blessed be. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing together, Turn the World Around, because that's what we're doing. We are turning the world around. We can. We can.
Pages 3 and 4,
jam
we
it.
do pages 3 and 4. Turn the page to pages 5 and 6. You never turn back. So. We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living in the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do you know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do you know who we are? See we one another clearly. Do you know who we are? Whoa, so is life a body, wow. So is life. Whoa, so is life a body, wow. So is life. Water make the river, river wash the mountain. Fire make the sunlight, turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain, spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the Spirit, truly of the Spirit, only can the Spirit turn the world around. Whoa, so is life a body, whoa. So is life, whoa. So is life a body, whoa. So is life, whoa. So is life a body, whoa. So is life, whoa. So is life a body, whoa. So is life.
Didn't understand, but I figured if I were in the field, I would totally get it. But it seemed like really approachable. I would love actually leave it. I'm headed to Festival of Faiths.